Shalom, family, and welcome to Into All Truth. Welcome back. Please remember that Live Light Well Into All Truth is on patreon.com. Patreon/Into All Truth is where you find it. And we are also still on YouTube, but check for us first at livelightwell.com. And I give all glory, honor, and praise to Yahuwah HaMashiach. And I pray that your heart becomes fertile soil for the word of Yah to be planted in and bring forth fruit in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach. I made this documentary so that we, the people who've been scattered throughout the earth, can understand who we are. And this, of course, is not exhaustive. This is not the full history because we're just discovering it. We're just uncovering it. And we're looking to one another, to those of us who are at the transatlantic slave trade, to uncover and discover that history ourselves. Not to go to anyone else for it, but for us to uncover it by speaking to our ancestors and looking at our history as it is written according to our people. With that said, I'd like anyone listening to this to listen with the idea in mind that every nation and people has had the chance to rule the world. We're really about to wrap it up with Russia and China finally ruling the world. But keep in mind that everyone has done wickedness in the earth, including our people of the transatlantic slave trade. So as you listen to this, please contemplate the evil things your people have done, your ancestors, and even yourselves as individual people. And look at it as something to be rejected and shed and admitted to, so that you can embrace the right and good and true things that you can do in order to inherit good. It's painful to be sanded and polished, but it has to be done so you can shine. It is necessary to scrub off the old and dead, to walk in newness and light. The only way to do that is to shed light on the lies and embrace the truth, the whole truth. To walk in light and truth. Now, people will take some offense at hearing this, and this may be disorienting, and you will have cognitive dissonance and may react with cognitive dissidence because this is such a different teaching to what you're accustomed to hearing. But I ask that you follow the whole history, all of this teaching that I do, and it'll probably go for several months, not necessarily here, but so that you can know the error of all people in the story of this earth. But this message ultimately is only for those who receive it and no one else. It may take you a couple of years to receive it, but ultimately the truth is it's not for everyone. And that's a fact. There will be those who violently reject it. And that's going to be what happens. But whoever chooses to walk in the light and truth can enter into this. Whatever your family history, genetic origin, whoever you come from. But renouncing the darkness of your own family's history in order to embrace the light is the only way you're going to be able to walk in freedom. And when you come into this house, into the house of the people of the transatlantic slave trade, the children of the light, you can only walk in this way with us in order to be free. So, I thank you for your attention. I thank you for watching. And let's get into it. Before we can safely and comfortably, but most importantly, powerfully interact with others, it's so important that we know who we are. Otherwise, we can become subject to the influences and the labelings of others because we have no center and we have no choice but to grab onto the identity given to us by our oppressor. Sir Winston Churchill said, "In wartime, truth is so precious that she should always be attended by a bodyguard of lies. In other words, heavy prison bars surround that which is extremely valuable. So when we look at, for example, the American Treasury, where there's supposed to be gold, the Federal Reserve, we see that it is surrounded by many bars, all of this gold that's supposed to be there. And when we look at our own people, we find that they are behind bars. And ironically, melanin, which is generally found in darker skinned people in large amounts, melanin is responsible for many of the reproductive and well-being hormones created by the pineal gland. Melanin sells for more than $350 a gram. It is more precious than gold. A people more precious than gold. So this gives you a clue as to why our people are behind bars or enslaved. We have a lot of value, intrinsic value, value that comes and is coded from within. But what if it can only be accessed by knowing who you are and by you choosing to receive and act on that truth? There are many of us who know who we are and are waking up to it, but it is so strange and it'll create such a tear in the fabric of consciousness and reality that it'll literally turn the world upside down. It will put you in such a state of cognitive dissonance that you won't want to believe it, because the truth is surrounded by lies. When you've been lied to for 2,000 years about who you are over and over again, the truth will seem impossible and ridiculous. Right now in North America, many African Americans, so-called, are being harassed, from 5-year-old children to elderly people, men on the streets, women are being taken aside for having a picnic, selling lemonade, driving while black, and they're all being asked, "Who are you? Show me your ID." Everywhere in America, this is happening like a plague. You see, so-called African Americans are not actually African Americans, like there are, for example, German Americans or Italian Americans. African Americans were never naturalized or given their citizenship. They are called minorities because they are children of the state. They are children, minors of the nation, who is their technical parent. And technically, African Americans have not been emancipated from childhood to become full citizens. This is a form of spiritual warfare, some would say. And it is. But guess what? It's also a question that you should be asking yourself. It's being forced on everyone. And the only ones who will escape the persecution of this questioning are those who know who they are. So let's start with the great things your people have done in North America. Among others, the Black Moors of Europe, like Matthew da Costa and Luis Torres, brought the Europeans here, navigated and communicated with the indigenous people here in North America because they spoke the same language. Philip Reed, a slave, somehow was able to cast and design the Statue of Liberty, Ashtaroth, which sits on top of the White House. This is it here to the right. Benjamin Banneker designed crop rotation, the Farmer's Almanac, and he designed Washington, D.C. itself. The first female millionaire in North America was Madam C.J. Walker, a Black woman. She based her business on hair care and plant-based oils, but she wasn't the only Black female millionaire. George Washington Carver was a university professor and agricultural scientist who introduced crop rotation introduced peanuts and alternative crops to farmers. In fact, was among the many indigenous African Americans and West African Americans who taught Europeans how to farm. Matthew Cherry invented the tricycle. The first man to ever go to the North Pole was Matthew Henson, and he went in 1909. Garrett Morgan invented the gas mask, the stoplight, and the double-stitch sewing machine. You can imagine how that altered how traffic worked, how manufacturing worked with dangerous chemicals, and the manufacturing of clothes with the double-stitch sewing machine. This is one of America's first famous female poets, Phyllis of Rhode Island. Joseph Smith created the automatic sprinkler, and you can imagine how that altered and expanded industrial farming. This is Onesimus. Onesimus means slave in Greek, and he was the first to do an inoculation against smallpox in North America. Jan Matzigler designed the automatic shoemaking machine, which for the clothing and textile industry obviously would massively industrialize it and make it more prosperous. Andrew Jackson Beard was one of the inventors of a train coupling link. The Negro-Canadian inventor of the automatic engine lubricator, which enabled industrial ships and trains to carry all kinds of goods and foods all over the globe, was Elijah McCoy, also known as the real McCoy. People always wanted his tools and devices because they always worked. Edmund Berger invented the spark plug, and he was an African. Famous Russian author Alexander Pushkin was a Negro. And I'm using the term Negro because it helps to return us back to the land, and it's a term that we've rejected, but it's one of the stepping stones back towards the land. So I don't want you to be offended by the term. Just think of it as a reference point to point us back to where we came from. And the Negro inventor of the actual light, the filament itself, not the bulb, was Lewis Latimer. He also designed the housing for the telephone. The first successful open heart surgery came from Dr. Daniel Williams, again, an African American, and it was performed on an African American who got stabbed in a fight. Alexander Miles was the first one to automate mechanically the elevator. He's considered to be one of the inventors of the elevator. John Wesley Hyatt was the inventor of ball bearings, industrial plastic, and pure water filtration. Dr. Walter McAfee was the first mathematician and physicist to calculate the speed of the moon. Marie Van Britten Brown invented TV surveillance and the home security system. Sadly, she invented it because she had to use it in her own neighborhood due to the lack of police enforcement in her neighborhood. And blood plasma was created by Dr. Charles Drew, another Negro American. The heart pacemaker was created and designed by Otis Boykin. The inventor of cataract laser surgery was actually a Negro American woman, and her name was Dr. Patricia Bath. And of course, this would have also influenced laser eye surgery. Professor Shirley Jackson was the inventor of fiber optic cable, touch tone, and caller ID. The co-inventor of the personal computer, Dr. Mark Dean, also a Negro. The inventor of GPS, which is used on Google Maps and all navigation systems and softwares all over the world, is this lovely lady who looks like your auntie or grandma, Gladys West. And the inventor or the creator of the computer code that is used to surf the web and send emails is Emmett McHenry, another Negro. These are the people who, by their inventions, gave a blood transfusion to people. They created light in the darkness, and they gave sight to the blind so they could see. They renewed and repaired the heart so people could live again. They gave a new heart so people could live again. They know the code of life, which is written into the code of computers. They planted crops to feed the hungry and the poor and taught others to feed themselves. These people have made it possible for people to be transported and goods all over the world. They have brought healing and growing salves and oils to people all over the world, and healing inoculations. So these people are the people who know the light, or imagine going through your day without being able to use any of these inventions. You wouldn't be able to do anything. So if your people invented all of these things, why would you go to another people to define who you are, where you're from, and what land is yours or is not yours? Sir Winston Churchill said, "In wartime, truth is so precious that she should always be attended by a bodyguard of lies." In other words, heavy prison bars surround that which is extremely valuable. A people more precious than gold. So what if the blessings, the hidden blessings of a people more precious than gold, can only be accessed by choosing to receive the terrible and beautiful truth of who you really are? It's very important as we try to figure out and remember who we are, that those who benefit from the labors of us and our ancestors would not be the best source for going to try to find out who we are. Particularly since they've been hiding the majority of the contributions our people have made to the world for more than 4,000 years. And note in this, I've excluded music and art and dance and athleticism, military, government strategy. That's what I've excluded. So there is nothing that we get from this point forwards that is charity. So why would we go to other people to define who we are? Until we find out who we are, we won't be able to escape this prison. There are many of us who know who we are and are waking up to it, but it is so strange, and it'll create such a tear in the fabric of consciousness and reality that it'll literally turn the world upside down. It will put you in such a state of cognitive dissonance that you won't want to believe it, because the truth is surrounded by lies. When you've been lied to for 2,000 years about who you are over and over again, the truth will seem impossible and ridiculous. So as you enjoy this series on the Moors and the original people of North America, taking us all the way back to our national land and spiritual origins, I urge you to remember you are undoing and disarming a battalion of lies in your mind, in your body, in your spirit, in your heart, in the spirit realm, on all levels. So it's going to be warfare. Warfare within your spirit man and your mind, and war to those around you. So this is just a preview, part 1 of this series, Who Are You? The People of the Transatlantic Slave Trade. And we'll go into more depth about who the Moors are. in the next portion of the series. Thanks for watching.